All right, welcome into another episode of the Cherry Picking Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Today, we're going to be doing a mock draft. We're going to be myself, Gavin. We got two chaps in the office, Avery and Levi, and then a bunch of other random people that we'll see kind of what their drafts are going to look like after today. So 12-man league. This one, standard, regular roster positions, 2 centers, 2 left wings, 2 right wings, 4D, 2 goalie, and I think 4 or 5 bench positions, excuse me. Gav, going into this draft, is there something that you're trying to do specifically, or you're targeting a specific position?
Yep, I'm going to be targeting defensemen early. So ideally, to start off, I'm picking 7th today. I'm going to go for my number 1 center, and then after that, I'm going to try to get 3 or 4 defensemen before the 7th round, and then I'll start looking at goalies maybe in the 8th or 9th round, somewhere around there. Did a couple mock drafts already. Loving the way the team's shaping out. I know it doesn't always happen like that, but I don't know. I think defenseman early is the play this year.
Defenseman early could be the play. You know, former Cherry Picking host Drew Boyer has had tons of success off this strategy before. We just went over our draft strategy, so if you haven't seen that, make sure to check that out. It's really the only 3 that we went over were the heavy defenseman one that Gavin talked about. Then you have the 0 goalie strategy that I will actually be implementing in this draft, trying to see kind of what forwards and what tandem I can get together near the end of the round in terms of goalies. I'm probably going to look for a goalie in like the 10th or 11th round. There's definitely some gems hidden back there that you can definitely take advantage of. And then it allows you to kind of just focus on forwards and defensemen in the early parts of the draft, which is really where you make your bread and butter, unless you're getting that Vasilevsky, Igor Shesterkin, Saros, Ilya Sorokin kind of deal. I think you're fine to wait on goalies. But, I mean, we'll see kind of how it pans out. Not too sure how the rest of the office is going to take this strategy. They've definitely been listening in on the Cherry Picking podcast the last couple of days. Will they take our advice? Probably not.
I don't know. I'm guilty of it too. Usually with like the football mock drafts that we do around here, I'll listen to the strategy. I'll listen to what you guys are saying, and maybe I'll snipe a couple of your players. So I have a feeling that's going to happen to us today. I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm hoping for the best.
Yeah, hoping for the best for sure. So we're just waiting for this lobby to round up here. But Gav, I know you're going after me at this point, but at 7, who would your ideal player kind of be at this point with the strategy that you want?
Typically, I would never take a defenseman in the first round, but if Keel McCarr falls into my hands, I'd be ecstatic with that. Yeah. It's probably not realistic, so probably looking at Rantanen here with the 7th pick. I really like the center and winger eligibility. A lot of the there's so many centers. Doing the previous mock draft we just did, there's so many centers. Josh Norris was still around. His ADP is like 80 right now, and he still wasn't taken by the 150th pick, I think it was,
something crazy
which is just insane, and it shows you the value on that center and winger eligibility value.
Yeah, for sure. Agree with that point. And yeah, for the 4th pick, where I'm sitting at, where are Levi and Avery drafting? Look here.
Levi's after me.
Levi at 8, and Avery's hitting in the 12 hole. So this might be a little bit smaller roster size than some of you guys, or team kind of league size that you guys are used to. I've seen a lot of 14, 16-man leagues that you guys are in. That's pretty crazy. You really have to dig deep for those bench guys that you're getting later on. But fantasy hockey is built for that. It's a little different than football. A little bit more players that have value later on in the rounds, I would say, for sure. So I'm sure these guys will go with McDavid at number 1. I mean, you take a huge step on the competition when you get McDavid. He's universally the best player in the world and in fantasy hockey as well. So here we go. Start off right away, and we got McDavid, Draisaitl, Matthews. Kind of the standard 1, 2, 3 that you'll see. I said I'm going goalie, 0 goalie, so I'm fine with taking defenseman. I will take Keel McCarr at 4 all day. Sorry, Gav, to snipe a player. I don't think he would have gotten to 7 anyway, but McKinnon next. So now Kucherov off the board. What are you looking at here, Gav?
I'm taking Rantanen, like I said. I think with the dual position eligibility, there's just too much value there to pass up.
Interesting. Yep, this is going pretty much, I would say, almost exactly how you would think. If you looked at the Yahoo Fantasy ADP, this is pretty on par with how drafts are going. So this is pretty crazy. Levi taking the goalie route, not going the 0 goalie position, obviously already fading me. Not a surprise at all. Kirill, Huberdeau. I love Kirill this year. I think Kirill is bound for another great year. He had all that bullshit go on with him and him being detained in Russia, but he is in back in Minnesota now, so I think he'll be fine. And he broke every Minnesota record last year. I don't see why he can't go for over 50 goals this year and another 100-point season. So I like that. Wow, Adam Fox is the second defenseman taken. That is insane. Or
Hedman.
Avery.
Yeah, that is insane.
Mitch Marner, really high on Mitch Marner this year. I know you're a Leafs fan. Like, do you like him going into this season? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, every year they just keep getting better, right? Something I noticed earlier, bit unrelated, but Nylander's been falling down a lot too, and I'm wondering if that's maybe with the concerns with Johnny T. Nylander's been falling down a lot, and again, he's someone that's been getting better every year. But it's up to my pick now. Like I said, I'm going defenseman heavy. Gonna go with Aaron Ekblad here. I think it's just a great value pick. I mean, PP one time, that team's still going to be an offensive juggernaut.
Yep.
Defensively, overall, they might not be as good of a team as last year, but I think for my first defenseman off the board, Ekblad, I'm happy with that.
I'm going to go with Panarin here. I like Panarin, the left winger. We talked about how deep the center position can be later on in the draft. JT Miller, obviously,
JT Miller,
he's also very appealing. I think Panarin's a little bit more proven. If you look at his stats compared to the rest of the league since he's joined New York, I think he's third in the last 3 seasons in points per game, only behind a couple guys. So that's really hard to pass up on, and I'll gladly take him at any point. But that is a good point, Gav. JT Miller, 99-point season last year. This Canucks team does seem like they maybe are on a little bit of a rise. They've got a lot of young talent that's starting to really show up. Niels Hoglander, name one. Vasily Podkolzin as well. So there's definitely a couple guys there that could be valuable later on in your fantasy drafts, but definitely I think the top 2 at this point. JT Miller, Quinn Hughes, and even Elias Pettersson as well. So my pick's coming up soon. There's there's 2 guys, honestly, that I'd be totally fine with taking at this point. I'm looking for either Kreider, 50-goal season. That's also not being talked about a lot.
I don't know if he can do that again, though. I know it's so hard not to think he can, because no one ever thought he would score 50 goals in the first place. So it's just insane to me. But I don't know. I kind of think the Rangers are due for a regression spot. I mean,
interesting.
Shesterkin was incredible last year, which, I mean, is it sustainable? I don't know. I guess we'll see. Kreider, again, I don't know if it's sustainable too. I guess this year we'll really find out and see what the Rangers are really made of.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with actually Timo Meier here. I was going to look at Kyle Connor, but Timo Meier giving the left wing and right wing eligibility is huge. This guy gets tons of pucks on net. His plus minus might not be great this year, but to be honest, he's going to be the only guy on this team really scoring. Apart from him, Logan Couture, maybe Kevin LeBanc. But there's going to be some pretty heavily offensive games, despite their coach and just the way that he's kind of coached in the past. So, yeah, I definitely like the Timo Meier pick here. Gav, what are you hoping for at this point?
I'm hoping for John Carlson, I think. Yeah, so I got him here.
Perfect.
On the Capitals, electric power play. He's just a consistent year in and year out player that puts up a lot of points in terms of fantasy. Yeah, I'm happy with how my team's looking so far. I have Ekblad, Rantanen, and Carlson. I'm probably going to look to get about 1 more defenseman and then probably pivot back to forwards, depending on who's available when it comes back to me.
Yeah, fair enough. Brady Tkachuk there going right after you. Levi snagging him. We were in a mock draft earlier, and Brady Tkachuk went 3rd overall, which is outrageous. That's an outrageous reach on Brady Tkachuk, in my opinion. That's
one thing I'd say. I guess we didn't really mention it in the strategy video earlier this week, but try to not let your fandom get in the way of everything. I know that's an extreme case, and it was in a mock draft that didn't really mean anything, but there's definitely always those scenarios where classic Leafs fans like myself are just reaching on guys because they want them on your team. If they come to you, great, but never reach on someone because you love that team. Or if you hate someone, if you don't like a player like Brad Marchand, I know there's scenarios where people are like, oh, I just hate that guy, I'm not going to draft him, but if you can get him and steal him in a draft, I think you shouldn't shy away from it just because of maybe personal biases.
Yeah. There you go with Avery taking Mo Sider there. Obviously Calder winner last year. This guy looks like he could be the next.
He is a stud.
Nick Lindstrom for this Detroit team, anchoring this decor at this point. He's gotten some veteran help going into the year, but still, this guy's going to be an absolute stud. I love that pick in the 4th round, Ave. So. Very well done. DeBrincat, that's a guy I was hoping would fall to me, but obviously tough considering he's now on this Ottawa team. Probably going to play on a line with Jimmy Stu and Claude Giroux, which is a really fucking good line. This Ottawa team's going to be no joke this year. I really think they took a leap forward. Who do you think here, Gav?
Levi just sniped Jack Eichel from me. Yeah, he heard me earlier. So I'm going to round it out, finish off with the last defenseman I'm going to take till the 7th round. I went really hard. This is my 3rd defenseman so far, but I'm going to go with Quinn Hughes. I think, you know, a lot of people think about his plus minus and how he's always on for goals against, but yeah, he's still a young player. I think he can still put up a lot of points. He's definitely a lot of upside there still, and I think that Vancouver team is going to be pretty electric this year. They just keep getting better. They're going to be an exciting team. They're young and they're skilled.
Yeah, no, definitely right there. So for me right now, I'm 2 picks away. Looking like these 2 bozos in front of me are boom noggin is auto drafting, and so is this chap.
So is Chris. Chris Peters.
We hate to see that. But they went Max Pacioretty and Mark Stone, probably the 2 auto draft options. It's crazy that Patrick Kane is going this late in drafts. I'm still going to hold off on him. I kind of need a center. I feel like this guy might be available by the next time I come around, but nah, I can't not take him. I'm going to take Jason Robertson. I love Jason Robertson this year. Last year, that line, Hintz, Pavelski, and Robertson, I believe it was one of the best lines in hockey in terms of scoring at a super efficient rate. I don't really see that changing this year. Like, that line will overtake and is already overtaking like the Ben and Seguin line. Like, these guys they're moving forward here with Robertson and Rupe Hintz. I think at this point Pavelski could honestly be interchangeable on this line. Those are the 2 guys of the main focal point. I love a lot of Dallas Stars. If you guys seen the video before, I'm taking Heiskanen and Rupe Hintz much earlier than their ADP if that becomes available, and if it makes sense for my draft as well. You obviously, like, with me, I already have 2 left wingers. Cale Makar, and now a center. And then the other guy I hope that I'll be able to get, wonder if I'll be able to get him, is this cat right around here, Elias Peterson. I don't know if I'll be able to get him. Gav kind of talked about the Canucks in terms of Quinn Hughes, but I'd really like Pettersson this year. He's going to play on a line with Mikheyev, who came over from Toronto. That guy, he just goes and gets the puck. Yeah. And he's also lightning quick. That's really advantageous to Pettersson. He's put on a little bit of weight. I heard he came into camp about 10 pounds heavier this year. That's something that was a cause for concern because of the times he got injured.
He was so small when he came into the league.
Yeah, just not a really big body presence. He's tall, but he's never really had the weight. I think this will help him this year for sure. Those 2 lines, the JT Miller line and now the Pettersson line, I think are both really good complements to each other. Now I'm seeing that, and he's fucking gone, obviously. I really do need a center, though. Like Giroux with the center and right wing ability, but man, is that my number 1 center? Like, fucking Christ. I'm going to go with Giroux. It's the last kind of stab at that one. Wasn't as prepared. I definitely thought Pettersson was going to be able to fall to me, but sometimes obviously it doesn't happen your way. Evgeny Malkin going off right after. So Gav, D or what?
We're not going defenseman here. I'm going back to, I have 3 defensemen I'm really happy with right now, and I kind of want some more depth on the wings here. So I'm going with Kevin Fiala. A bit of a reach, but I really like that dual eligibility, and I think he's going to be on an LA Kings team this year that's going to be even better. PP1 time. I could have took Philip Forsberg there, but the only reason I didn't is because he does only have that left wing eligibility. So it just gives me more flexibility throughout the entire season.
Yep, definitely. That could definitely be the case. Darnell Nurse going next. So you're seeing a trend here, obviously, like a lot of these D that are going, it's starting to get to a point where these D1s, I guess you could call them, are almost, maybe not all gone, but they're getting pretty close. Like, who's left at the defenseman position at this point? Devin Taves, Drew Doughty, Darlene Weegar. So these guys I would still put in that category for sure. Shea Theodore as well. I'd probably look for a D for my next pick. I still don't have a goalie, but the goalies that are available are pretty still very good as well. As we head into the 6th round here, we still have Fleury,
We'll
Demko,
start seeing the goalies fly off the board here, but we're okay with that, right? This is why we're drafting this way, is so that we're prepared to do one of these stacks or maybe tandems later in the 10th round and kind of go for the value there, because we've mentioned before in previous strategy that we're not really into the top people. If you're outside of the top 5 goalies, we don't really see the value there on taking you in maybe the 6th round, 7th round. I just really don't see the point when we can get someone that's just as valuable in the 10th or 11th rounds. Yeah,
this was an interesting draft to see a lull of 2 rounds with no goalies. I would have definitely thought Saros or Sorokin would have gone in the 3rd round. Saros was the first pick in the 4th round, and then Sorokin went a little bit. Or no, Sorokin was the second pick of the 4th round. Saros was the last pick of the 4th round, excuse me. But yeah, now we're seeing a bunch of defensemen come off the board here. Devin Taves and Drew Doughty. Taves, I mean, can't go wrong with him either. He's playing on a line with Keel McCarr for the most part. So really, McCarr at this point, I think everyone's projecting again. This guy's floor at like 90 points, maybe 200 shots, 100 hits, 100 blocks. It's pretty much the numbers he hit last year. If he plays another full season on this Colorado team, I don't really see any reason why that couldn't be the same. Devin Taves will be a beneficiary of that for sure. So,
all right, so I've locked in my last starting defenseman. I have 4 defensemen in the first 6 rounds. Going with Rasmus Dahlin here. Again, still, I think there's a high floor here. He just keeps getting better too. He hasn't fully grown into what he can be yet, but I do think this Buffalo team is going to be better this year. They've shown bright spots last year, and I think with the PP1 time, it's another good value. My whole back end right now has a lot of upside here, and I'm really happy with that. I'm not going to be in the middle of the season worrying about needing to stream defensemen in or where I'm losing out on points, because I'm going to be able to get that value back in all the forwards in the later rounds.
Yeah, this Buffalo D-course looks like it's actually starting to shape up. You know, they got guys like Owen Power there too. Jack Quinn, a name to definitely think about this year. I think he'll be in the Calder race. One of those guys on the Buffalo Sabres back end right now who could definitely be in the starting 6 when it comes to the beginning of the season, or maybe early in November. So keep an eye out for him. He'll definitely be going way later on, probably undrafted in most spots, but so this point here, I know exactly who I'm taking. I'm very high on Jack Hughes this year. I think him going in the 7th round is a little much. I've already seen in preseason this line with him, Andre Palat, and Alexander Holtz. Holtz is a young kid too, tons of skill. If they can really get going, which I've seen in the preseason and these mini camps, this line looks like their chemistry is already in great form. There's no reason why I don't think if Jack Hughes stays healthy, he can have near an 80 to 90 point season. And in the 7th round or 8th round, like that's insane value. So might as well just take the chance on that. Mm-hmm. So what are you going with here next, Gav? Goalies are starting to fly off a little bit.
Goalies are flying off, and so are the couple centers that I was looking at here. I think I might actually have to grab a goalie now, or I'm just going to go the bit of a reach here on Trevor Zegras.
Trevor Zegras.
Yeah.
Wow.
Welcome to the team.
Welcome to the squad. Welcome to the Gavins. So Trevor Zegras, I would agree. It's a little bit of a reach, but we don't really know what this guy's ceiling is just yet. We saw him obviously in his first full season last year. Got edged out by Siders this incredible year, and even Lucas Raymond too was maybe a little bit ahead of him by the end of the season, but I think it was pretty close. I think if anything, Zegras probably got the most amount of votes. But yeah, this guy's skill is unreal. Him and Troy Terry will be playing on a line again this year. But one guy on that Ducks team that I think is definitely worth noting is Mason McTavish. He lit up the World Juniors in the summer, so definitely someone you guys can keep an eye on. He will not be playing on that Troy Terry Zegras line. I can almost guarantee you if that was the case, they would get smoked. Like every single, I would say at least one injury a game if that was the case. Mismatch hell in terms of size for the Ducks. So
all right, so I got my number 1 goalie. If you guys watched the goalies to target video, you'd know I'm really high on this guy, and that's Connor Hellebuck. The Winnipeg Jets are projected to allow the most shots on goal the entire season. We've seen that before. They let up a lot of shots, and Connor Hellebuck's going to get a lot of volume. This guy won the Vezina. If I can get him in the 9th, 8th round, I'm really happy with that because I have a bona fide starter that can put up a lot of points. I can't really complain about that.
I went with Kyrou. I needed a right winger as well. I have now the Timo Meier and Jordan Kyrou left wing and right wing duality, I guess you could say it. That's huge in terms of starting your lineup every day. You could pretty much always slot one of those guys in, which is really nice, having that flexibility. And I really like Kyrou this year. He had a really good season last year. He was one of the top goal scorers, I think, on this Blues team now for sure. Ryan O'Reilly obviously is still there, Vladimir Tarasenko, but I think Kyrou is definitely the guy they're going to be focusing on as the young guy to kind of spring this team in the right direction. This next pick that I'm going to be looking at, I'm probably going to go D. did Zach Werenski just go, but I do have my guy Miro Heiskanen. I'm really high on this guy. You have Peter DeBoer coming in. We've seen what he's done with the top-tier defensemen on these teams. Shea Theodore had a breakout season under him and continued to produce when his time in Vegas. And then you look at Brent Burns. He had his 4 best seasons were all when Peter DeBoer was there. He averaged like 75 points per season when he was there, so I'm fine with taking Miro Heiskanen here. I think this is breakout year. 23 years old, and he's already played 4 years in the NHL. That's extremely valuable experience, so I think this Dallas team is going to be a little underrated this year. You see here in this 9th round, 6 straight defense to start. You got Noah Dobson, Brent Burns, Zach Werenski, Miro Heiskanen, Torrey Krug, and Evan Bouchard. So obviously Gav laughing at with all those great defensemen, but now you can focus on forwards. Yeah, so like I mentioned before, I took, or not to have a vendetta against teams you don't like. I hate the Montreal Canadiens, and I just grabbed Cole Caulfield here in the 9th round. Honestly, I'm happy with that. We all know he started out really slow last year under Ducharme, but with the addition of Marty St. Louis as the head coach, I think he's really due for an explosive year. He could easily be 30 to 35 goals this year. And if I can get that type of value in the 9th round, I'll take it all day. Yeah, that's good. That's very good. I like that pick. Yeah, Cole Caulfield, one of the guys I'm actually going to be betting on, one of the long season prop bets, I guess you could say. Over 31.5 goals at DraftKings right now, in my opinion, seems absolutely so fucking free. We saw his numbers that he produced under Martin St. Louis. I think he had 22 goals in 37 games after they fired Ducharme. So I think Cole Caulfield will be in a much better spot this year, and he's already buzzing in camp from what I've heard and seen. So I mean, there's no reason why I don't think this Montreal team will be able to score goals. So Avery and Levi's draft is going interestingly enough. Yeah, Chabot and Dougie Hamilton. I like both those picks. Mr. Levi, Avery, Matthew Boldy. I'll be honest, I feel like Matt Boldy's numbers last year might have been boosted a little bit from Kevin Fiala. I wonder how it's going to go this year with not as much certainty at that without Fiala there for sure. He's definitely a good playmaker. So I'm going to go for a goalie now. Finally, we are in. Is your guy Bennington on the board still? 10th round, and yes, I'm going to go with Jordan Bennington. I love Bennington this year. Husso's gone. He's got to get back into form, or St. Louis is expecting him to get back into form. I think they will. Their decor, obviously, it lacks a little bit of defensive efficiency. Like, they do have big names in Krug, Parayko, Justin Falk. I think this year we'll see them step up a little bit more. I think as a whole healthy unit, it'll be much better as well. All right, I'm right back on the clock here. Looking at maybe just best player available at this point is probably what I'm looking for. I mean, I talked about this guy a ton, so I feel like I kind of have to take him. Always good to have a lot of depth at center, and that's Tage Thompson. Taking Tage Thompson, almost 40 goals last year. I think this Buffalo team is going to continue to produce this. He's going to be a focal point. They just re-signed him. There's no reason why Don Granato and this Buffalo Sabres team won't put him at the forefront of a lot of scoring positions. This guy's shot is off the charts. Go look, if you have some time, watch his power play highlights from last year and look how many goals he scored on the half wall. This guy's going to be in the exact same spots this year, shooting at an elite rate. So, all right, with my pick in the 11th round, I'm going with Rupe Hintz. Nice. I honestly love this pick. I think it's a steal at this spot, maybe a round early or so, but I think a lot of people are going to be targeting him here. Centering Robertson and Pavelski. Yeah. I think it's going to be a great line. I know with Peter DeBoer in there, hopefully they're a more exciting team this year. A lot of people are complaining in the playoffs saying the Dallas Stars were their least favorite team to watch, but I don't care because Rupe Hintz is going to be putting up points on my fantasy team. Yep, that's a very good point. Rupe Hintz, just 80-point season last year. If you're getting a guy who's getting you 80 points in the 12th round or 11th round, that's usually pretty good. There's guys like Sebastian Aho who have lived in that 80-point range pretty much their entire career, and people are taking them in the 3rd and 4th round. So you got to think about that definitely when you're thinking of fantasy hockey. There's definitely players that exceed their expectation as a real-life hockey player in terms compared to their fantasy value. So that's definitely something to watch for. Yeah, so I'm going to lock up my second goalie here. I'm going to go with Ilya Samsonov. Bit of a question mark this year, but I think they're going to be doing a 1A, 1B situation in Toronto, or I guess some people would call it a 1A, 1A, maybe even 1B, 1B. But yeah, I want to have a second goalie here. I think the Leafs are good for their wins at least, so this is a bit of a who knows what's going to happen with it, but I'm willing to take the risk on it at this point in the draft when there's not really many other starters left. Yeah, one guy I'm looking at, I would have loved to get Ville Husso, to be honest, but I'm going to be taking Anton Forsberg. I really was impressed with Forsberg last year, to be honest. Now that Cam Talbot's in the picture, obviously his fantasy value lessens a little bit, but I think there's a good chance that, you know, this is either an equal split or whoever has the hot hand will continue to play. So I'm fine with taking that chance with a guy in the 13th round later on. At this point, I should probably shore up my last defenseman position. Looking at who is available, also need to fill that right winger spot as well.
Yeah,
I would have loved, to be honest, to grab Severson in that last spot. He had some really good underlying metrics last year in terms of expected goal rate. It was pretty high on this Devils team. I think you could expect that from him and Dougie Hamilton this year. One guy that I don't know if I should probably reach on, but I kind of want to, is Sean Durzi. I'm really high on Sean Durzi this year. This guy has been a point machine wherever he's been. Last year in his short stint in the AHL, he had 16 points in 13 games. And then in the OHL as well, or maybe it was 13 points in 16 games, excuse me. But in the OHL, he averaged his last 2 seasons, a point per game. You're looking at defensemen like that going into the NHL. I think this is going to be his breakout year, turning 23, 24 kind of range. That's always a good thing to note. And he has Doughty as a safety net.
So I'm going with Lucas Raymond here again. I think
nice.
I think Ryan, both of us are a bit higher on the Red Wings than we thought we were going to be.
Yeah.
Again, this guy just got edged out on the call there to his teammate Sider, and man, like they're going to be something to reckon with in a couple years. I think like Yzerman doing it again, right?
Yeah, I think even looking at their team this year, like they've picked up some good players, like picked up David Perron, they picked up Andrew Kopp, some like second, third line offensive depth is really good, even on the defensive end as well. And then obviously picking up Ville Husso is definitely an upgrade from the Nedeljkovic and Thomas Greiss combo that they had last year. So looking at the draft results right now, how are you liking your team, Gav?
Yeah, I'm really happy with my team. Like I said before, I think it's so important to get in on defensemen early because there's such a huge drop-off. If you miss out on the top, if you don't have 3 steady defensemen on your team right away, I think you're at just a huge disadvantage all season because we've mentioned before that defensemen are never on waivers, but even looking at the draft board right now, there's so many other forwards that can provide upside to your team that you might as well go ahead and lock those defensemen in early so you don't have to worry about it throughout the season.
Yeah. Yep, definitely.
But yeah, like with Ekblad, Carlson, Quinn Hughes, Dahlin, really like it. Here in the later rounds, I'm really just kind of going on upside. But again, I might just take Michael Bunting. He's going to ride Austin Matthews' coattails into the sunset this season.
Yeah, I like that pick. Okay, so one guy I'm going to go with right here. Another guy, so this is going to be the third guy I'm taking that has the left wing and right wing duality, which I think is huge, and I don't think this is even a reach. It's Adrian Kempe. We talked about this Kings team a lot. This is the second player on the Kings that I've taken at this point. But yeah, okay, so all these guys are on auto draft at this point, so we're pretty much getting free reign on any players we want. Since my goalie situation isn't super set in stone, to be honest, I'm going to take Vitek Vanacek at this spot. I know people might think that's a little crazy, but if you look at his numbers compared to Samsonov's last year, he was much better. It was only in the playoffs where he really started to tail off. I think this Devils team will be better this year. Blackwood obviously didn't get to play a ton last year because he was hurt, but I still think that Vanacek and him are decent options, especially when you're looking in the 15th round. It's still a starting goalie, so.
Yeah, 15th round, I'm taking Jared McCann here.
Jared McCann.
Yeah, someone I really like with dual eligibility again. It just gives me so many different options throughout the season where I can kind of just plug and play him in wherever if I need to. I mean, he has 30 goal potential upside, so in the 15th round, I'll take that all day.
Yep, that's fair. Avery's on the clock now. I'm trying to look up, maybe get one more defenseman and then the rest forwards.
Yeah.
There's definitely someone I want. He's got to be still around. Oh, wow, he went. Jake Sanderson went. That is surprising. So, yeah, this is the last pick for our draft here. I have 3 goalies, 4 defensemen, and then 2 guys on my bench in terms of forwards. I'm sure a lot of you will be playing with a few more bench spots, but still, This is definitely good to know. See who we're taking in the last kind of final rounds here. Is there anyone that you're going to take like an absolute flyer on, Gav, or are you just going to wait? Or are you just going to kind of play it safe with somebody? Because look at all these centers left. Like,
yeah, there's still so many centers left. It's actually insane. Like you said, you notice that it's just the guys that don't have that eligibility. Those guys are really falling down the draft. So if you target the guys with dual eligibility early in the draft, then you can pick up some of these guys later on. Just close it out with Ryan O'Reilly there.
Yeah, there you go. And I'm going to take one more D. I'm actually going to take Josh Morrissey, even though he might maybe not be the most popular pick. If you're looking at these defense lists, you have Dumba, Provorov, Adam Boqvist, Alec Martinez, Sam Girard. I do like Morrissey. He's the #1 D on this Winnipeg team. He actually scores at a pretty elite rate, so definitely something to monitor there. But here are the results. Just take a quick look at the first couple rounds and how they went. So the first 6, so you know, it's obviously Gav did the defenseman heavy strategy. You're seeing him along with this random RNT 82 guy. You guys
he must listen to Cherry Pickin.
He must be listening to Cherry Pickin because he did a very similar one.
Yeah.
Bart, on the other hand, did not do that. He took Victor Hedman and then took his sweet fucking time taking defensemen later on in the draft. That's fine as well. Going over the 2 guys in the office, whose teams, let's see, Levi, Vasilevsky, Makachuk, like Kachuk brothers, pairing them together. Interesting. Don't love your centers, but Jack Eichel, who knows what he's going to do this year in Vegas, playing a full season.
His defensemen are pretty shaky.
Drew Doughty, Dougie Hamilton, Thomas Chabot, Gustav Forsland. So I think this is also a really good example of you could take defensemen a little bit later on. Like these guys have their names carry a lot of firepower, but just be careful, I would say, just not getting too sucked into the high name firepower because they might not translate in terms of defensemen. I'm not saying that's the case with Drew Doughty, but Dougie Hamilton last year, you know, he was hurt for pretty much a better part of the year. Chabot should have a great year this year. This guy's improved every single year he's been in the league. And as this Ottawa team, I talked about Jake Sanderson, continues to take off, I think they're in a similar spot as the Ducks on the defensive side as well. And then Troy Terry, some guys later on. Do you like your team there, Gav?
Yeah, I'm happy with my team. Obviously, like you always kind of wish like some guys fell to you and you have to make adjustments on the fly. But overall, like I'm really happy with my back end. And then even with my goaltending situation, I'm really happy to get Connor Hellebuck in the 8th round. That I'm not really worrying about that position. He's going to get a lot of volume and potential for the Jets to bounce back this year, meaning more wins, more points.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, my draft, I'm really happy with Makar at 4. Probably one of my favorite players, especially in terms of fantasy. The guy does it all. Then Panarin, I'm high on this year as well. I think the addition of Vinny Trocheck will actually pay dividends compared to Ryan Strome. I think people will see the upgrade that he is at center. Timo Meier, I talked about, shot juggernaut. Jason Robertson, I think he'll get more playing time this year and be really good in fantasy. Giroux, I can't say I'm super happy about it, but like I said, he has that center and right wing ability. Playing with Stützle and DeBrincat this year, they should generate a lot of points. And then the last couple guys, Jack Hughes, I mentioned already, Kyrou, Binnington and Forsberg, and Vanacek. I'm fine with those 3 goalies, to be honest. If you take this route, I think having 3 goalies is the best case scenario. Having a guy that 2 guys that you can pretty much start almost every night, depending if it works out in your favor. But yeah, that is the first edition of the Cherry Pickin mock draft heading into the season. Let us know in the comments what you guys thought of our drafts, what you guys thought of Levi and Avery's draft, also in the office, you know, maybe comparing them. Good to always see the experts from the average Joes. But yeah, that's it from us today. We'll see you guys next time. And yeah, be sure to like, subscribe, and join the Discord because fantasy hockey advice is going to be coming through the rails this year.
Yep.